Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the 5 Rounds Podcast, the only podcast out there with the cardio for those deep water championship rounds. I am Mags and joining me once again, getting a bit of a habit of this, wants to go and get a job, the lazy bastard, my son Carlos. Carlos, how are you?
I'm not too bad, I've not long coming from work.
Yeah, for context, Carlos literally basically bolted home from work, caught up on I think you caught the main event and then just caught the...
I came in just before the Ben Rothwell fight kicked off.
Well, that wasn't long, so
no.
You didn't have much to catch up on there. But we have essentially just finished watching UFC Vegas 42, headlined by Max Holloway and Yair Rodriguez, and kind of like always with these little kind of throwaway cards, it was an absolute banger all the way.
No.
I mean, even through the prelims, I mean, you won't have caught the prelims yet, but there was only one decision on the prelims and then only one decision on the main card. It was just full of finishes.
Well, that's it. Look at Dana and that lot, especially after a card like this, they'd be kicking themselves that they didn't do it in our arena.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. But they're back in the Apex in Vegas, so let's go through these prelims then. So we started with Jung Dae-Young picking up the first round knockout of Kennedy Zinchekwu. Then Rafael Alves got the first round sub from Mark Diakese. Courtney Casey got the decision over Liana Jojua. And then the first round KO in the featherweights went to Sean Woodson against Colin Anglin. Then we had Cynthia Calvillo losing in a second round KO to Andrea Lee. And then the feature prelim, Yoel Alvarez, one of the biggest underdogs on the card, with the first round knockout of Thiago Moises. That was an absolute banger of a fight. But going on to the main card now, and we started the night with Song Yadong taking on Julio Arce. And wow, what a way to kick off the card. Absolutely banger.
No pun intended.
No, it was such a good fight. Song has really kind of blossomed over the last few fights. I think I said going into this he was like 5-1, unbeaten in his last 5 fights. And yeah, you can tell this guy's got so much power for such a small. I mean, he even looks small for a bantamweight. But the power that guy has got, and Arce, who's had a little bit of time off, and you could tell there was a little bit of ring rust there, a little bit of tentative, but whenever Yadong let those big punches go, Jesus Christ, you could see they were hurting, and the just explosion as well from him is so fast, it's unbelievable. But he mixes it up with the kicks as well, and one thing that he has really kind of like picked up on is not overcommitting himself, and he showed that in this first round where he had Arce kind of on the ropes a little bit, but instead of like committing and maybe making a mess of it, he decided to hang back a little bit, was able to really work on that body. Arce picked up the pace a little bit more going into the end of the first round, but yeah, that was a great round for Yadong. Come out into the second round, Yadong lands some kicks to the leg, kicks to the body, stuns Arce with a right hand, but he tried to like kind of smile it off, but Song realised that he was hurt, landed another right hand, knocked him to the floor, just blasted him with strikes. It almost looked like Song knocked him out, then walking back up with the follow-ups. Arce was arguing with Herb Dean that it wasn't a finish, that he was alright, but yeah, that guy was out on his feet, and Song picks up a massive victory.
Yeah, definitely, especially as soon as when I was, because obviously it's all fresh to me, I've not literally just watched it before coming in to record. The only fight I watched live was the main event. So in this fight, Song were able to use that feint a lot in the first round, especially mixed in with the 1 or 2 kicks that he was throwing in with the feint, and he was using that a lot to keep Julio up against the cage, and that was perfect for him. And as you were saying, Julius is not long just come back to the UFC after a bit of a layoff. So yeah, he was definitely a bit, I'd say, tentative to wanting to go in, because like any other fighter, you just don't want to shoot in against someone like Song Yadong, and when I mean that is, I like to call people like him people who've got like that little tank power. They're not massive, they're not tall, but they built compact, and their little powerhouse is like a little tank would. They go through anything, and that, like Henry Cejudo in a way, he was built like that, a little tank power. That's why he were able to have so much success with the wrestling. A lot of wrestlers like that have that little tank power, which is, I think, in my own sense, a little quality way of putting it. But yeah, Song Yadong, after picking up the pace and then finding where the openings were, he knew them kicks was landing. So when it got into the second round, when he beautifully landed that roundhouse kick to Julio before basically following up with the strikes, and like when I said no pun intended to kick off the show, when he kicked his head off, he were that fight were over. And yeah, as you were saying, there was no point in arguing that. You were definitely out, and Song Yadong with a brilliant performance. And like you were saying, he's not the biggest in that bantamweight division, but the way he somewhat fights and how he can see angles, I think he could be a problem in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. So next, let's go into the welterweight division. Miguel Baeza taking on Chaos Williams. Chaos Williams, who's one of those kind of like breakout 2020 stars along the same lines as Kevin Holland and Hamzat Chimaev, where they just fought pretty much every week. And this Chaos Williams is a scary looking bloke. The fight started with him essentially stalking Baeza. Baeza kind of using that lateral movement really well to avoid battling with Chaos Williams, but Chaos he just took himself down really tight. Like you can see, he's always ready to try and unload that massive power shot. Baeza for the first 2 minutes or so was literally just sidestepping around the edge of the octagon, and Chaos was taking his time, trying for a few leg kicks just to tease Baeza into fighting. Goes for a few kind of long range shots, not getting much success out of Baeza. But then when Baeza tries to go for a takedown, he gets pushed away by Williams, and it's looking like this is going to be kind of like a fight that they counteract each other so much that it ends up being boring. And I was halfway through the first round thinking, come on, someone needs to start doing something now. And then Chaos Williams starts landing some big shots. We end up getting a little bit of a kind of a throwing of hands. Baeza lands some shots, and I think one big issue with Chaos Williams' game plan is that he always leaves himself open for attack. There's no defence in the guy. He will eat shots all day just to the hope of landing that big shot of his own. He eventually ends up going down to the ground, and this is where we've got some really interesting stuff on the floor with Baeza looking for a knee bar, almost kind of like a grapevine. But Williams was able to wrestle Baeza's hands apart and just land some heavy shots from sat down, and those would knock a normal human being out. But it was a really interesting fight. It took a few minutes to get going, but once both fighters settled in, we started seeing some really good action. Going into the second, it was a lot more in terms of output from both guys. Baeza was attempting to keep Williams at bay with the kicks. Williams was obviously looking for those big shots, landed a few jabs, looking for some low kicks of his own, starting to really kind of mix it up. We get a little bit of a break where we get a kick to the groin. Then it happens again later on in the round. So I think Williams could kind of count himself, looking at that he didn't get a doctor point for that, but some good refereeing by, I think it was Chris Tonioni, like basically saying, look, you need to keep control of your weapons. You're in charge of them. We know it's an accident, but I can't keep letting it slip. So then going into the third, Baeza started to continue with that leg work, landing some decent kicks to the calf. But then he gets caught with a spinning heel kick, but it kind of only glances him, so he's able to keep chopping with the legs. And it was almost like off one of those leg chops where Williams lands some big punches. Almost like he was falling over, and it was just like desperation shots. But one lands and it drops Bieza to the floor. Williams lands some ground and pound, and Bieza is out. Williams picking up the victory in the third round by a knockout.
It was absolutely, I wouldn't say a brilliant fight, but
certainly entertaining.
Yeah, we're entertaining. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. Since Chaos Williams has basically broke out onto the scene, I haven't been following him, because I have. I know the guy's got his own clothing brand, so how much I've been somewhat following him as a fighter. He's exciting to watch. He reminds me of a mixture of Mike Tyson and Kimbo Slice, where he walks around and gives off the persona of I'm Mike Tyson, but fights like Kimbo Slice.
It reminds me of Rampage Jackson.
Well, yeah, there's that sort of street guy who's not the best mixed martial artist, but they know how to fight. Mm-hmm. They know how to fucking take a punch, and they know how to throw a punch. And Chaos Williams is that fighter, and that's why. To be honest with you, I think that's why he's been such a breakout star. Like you were saying, not only has he been one of these fighters who said to Dana and Hunter, listen, if the fight comes available, I'll take it. Mm-hmm. Like I'm from the streets. Like I'll take a fight for money. Yeah, of course I will. But you can tell he's also sensible with obviously the way after the fight, when they were speaking to him, saying that he'll love to get back in there and take another fight with some serious coaching and honing in his skills. I reckon he could be again another one who could be a problem in the welterweight division. Obviously he's not. I'd be stupid of saying like, yeah, he's going to go up against Chimaev or Usman and give him a really tough time, because he's not. Let's be honest. But he's definitely an entertaining fighter. In the first round, when he was stalking Miguel, and Miguel weren't really doing nothing, and then he got the takedown and was trying to go for the ankle lock and then the knee bar and back to the ankle lock, and Williams were defending that well. He knew that if he kept his leg bent and basically kept in a ball and trying to like bring Miguel to him rather than letting Miguel straighten his leg out, he knew he was safe. Even though, and then again at the end of the fight when Bisping asked him about it, and basically said to him like, what sort of danger were you in? Williams even said it himself, where it did look. I can see where it had looked bad on camera, but it wasn't bad. And from being in that sort of position myself and experience it, sometimes it looks worse than it actually is. And he was doing all the correct things, where he wasn't in any real danger. And whilst I was watching that fight, I was seeing people on like MMA groups saying about, how did Chaos win that fight? How could someone be in a submission attempt and lose the fight? And I think that I'm going to throw my opinion in, and my opinion on that is that I think the judges were looking at more of the factors of what they were doing in the time, and not only that, the possible outcomes. Because if Miguel let that go, not only was Chaos Williams defending it perfectly, if Miguel let that go, Chaos Williams would have 9 out of 10 times ended up in the stronger position. He would have ended up on top of it, either in side control or half guard. So either way, it would look in his favour. And with Miguel trying that for almost a minute and a half and getting absolutely nowhere, that in the judge's eyes is saying, well, this is desperation. I've got nothing else, so I'm just going to try for this. And if it don't work, then I'm just going to keep trying. So in their eyes, that there is you giving in with yourself, because you can't do anything else to stand up to this guy. And that obviously turns around to be coming into the second round that he can, because obviously with the leg kicks that he was throwing, he was getting success from them. I just don't think he could stand with the power of Chaos Williams. And when they were getting into that little scuffle of getting into a brawl, Miguel didn't want any of that, so he was timing the leg kicks perfectly. Mm-hmm. Just unfortunately, how Douglas Lima knocked out MVP with a leg kick and the follow punch afterwards, Chaos Williams were able to actually not only take the leg kick in a way very off balance to throw a strike and then plant his feet to get that hook off. And the funny part, I won't say the funny part is because obviously Miguel's got knocked out, so I feel sorry for him. It's the aftermath of, as soon as he got knocked out, obviously you lose a couple of seconds of memory there, you don't quite know what's going on. And he started arguing straight away, he was looking about, and he walked back to Chaos like he was like, what are you doing, we're fine. And Chaos were like, yeah, no, we're not. And the judges were like, the referees and even the doctors were like, no, just sit down, we'll explain to you. He just got knocked the fuck out. It's like, you're not fighting, but yeah, that were a entertaining fight, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So next in the middle of the card, we had Felicia Spencer taking on Leah Letson. Felicia, if you remember, last year lost by decision to Amanda Nunes, and then followed it up with another decision loss to Norma Dumont earlier on this year. So she definitely needed to get back in the win column. Really kind of suffering from that challenger mentality where you lose once to the champion and then you start tumbling down, coming up against Leah Letson, who won in her debut for the UFC. So it's not exactly a gimme fight for Spencer, but you wouldn't have thought that with the performance that she put on. Just absolutely outstanding control by Felicia Spencer, and I've got to give it to Leah. The girl has got a lot of heart, but she was beaten in every facet of mixed martial arts in this fight. She was controlled on the ground, she was controlled up against the cage. Felicia had some really unique attacks. When she had Leah tangled up against the cage, she was hitting her with a shoulder, hitting her with swinging elbows, hitting her with punches coming over the top and then back down. Just really kind of just forced, consistent attack from Felicia Spencer. Very much just destroyed the face of Leah Letson. When Leah was able to get away from the cage, she did get some little semblances of success, but whenever Spencer wanted to go for the takedown or whenever Spencer wanted to clinch up against the cage, Leah just wasn't strong enough to fight her off. The way that Spencer always targeted the lead leg and got it all wrapped up with a triangle, a leg triangle to make sure that Leah couldn't escape, basically taking her down pretty much at will. There were points especially in the second round where Leah she kind of counteracted really well, but it was only very, very shortly, and as soon as Spencer was in any kind of a hint of danger, she was able to get back to her feet, got the fight back to the cage and got it back down to the ground again, and she just was absolutely dominant. Coming at the end of the first round and at the end of the second round, I was thinking, when is this finish going to come? Is this going to be one of those fights where you are waiting for the finish, and then it doesn't come? And it got close to that, but eventually Felicia Spencer was able to get the slam onto Leah Letson. Leah was trying to keep her guard tight, but Spencer was just pounding away with elbows and punches, and eventually Mark Smith did the decent thing and called it off. But props to Leah, an outstanding performance in terms of heart and defence, but this Felicia Spencer is the same Felicia Spencer now who made her way to a title match against Amanda Nunes. Is she quite back ready for that fight? I don't think so, but with this featherweight division it is very, very threadbare, so another victory like this and we might see Felicia versus Nunes too.
See, that is a possibility, even though this was a good fight, and like I explained to yourself and a couple of other people of why people said, oh, your opinion's wrong. Well, the way I would look at it is, if you're a new fan or if you watched a couple of fights, this was exciting. But for me, watching Felicia Spencer fight so many times, you know a game plan coming in, and if she was to go up against Amanda Nunes again, if In fact, I'll bet anyone, I know for a fact it doesn't go to decision this time, because Amanda Nunes probably just knocks her out. And that's the most boringest part about this women's division now, especially Nunes, because I love the way Nunes fights. It's just the fact is that no one else can match up to her, and everybody else, every other big name who's had some skill set behind them, has just been absolutely drenched out by how good Amanda Nunes is. And the thing that somewhat pisses me off about it is there is a lot of promotions out there with a ton of talent with females that don't get exposure, so there's only these 2 or 3 big names at the top of the women division in mixed martial arts. And that's why you were saying about how this division, how Felicia Spencer, she has one more win, she could fight Amanda Nunes for the title. How bland is that off? And no offence to Leah, because she's just shown she's got heart, but she's also just shown she's lost a lot of brain cells for taking so much damage, and that's not saying like bad things towards her. The UFC look for the best of the best, but at this point, with how they're not promoting the women's division or looking for the women's division so well, it's just more of how many likes can you get on Instagram or Facebook? Are you decent at basically throwing a punch? Right, we'll sign you. And it don't work out. Look at how many times they've done that with fighters, and it don't work out. Go out there and find female mixed martial artists who are serious about it. I can name 10 who are from North East Lancashire alone, from different gyms, from Manchester Predators to Reps MMA, from Black Knights to Combat Academy training facility in I think that's now in Bacup. So there's a lot of gyms around here with a lot of female talent, and there's a hell of a lot more in the UK alone. But not just to say America. Oh, look how big America is. There is a shitload of talent in there, and the PFL and Bellator and all that don't have a problem, and don't seem to have a problem with picking it up.
Well, you say that Cyborg fought yesterday. She knocked out Sinead Kavanagh in the first round, and who was sat octagon side?
Let me guess,
Kayla Harrison.
Well, I think the UFC have missed a bullet there, because I think she was also, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there were reports of her actually at the UFC event, and PFL, she's only, I think she may have only had one fight on a contract, or she's got no fight, she's a free agent.
Yeah, she's a free agent.
So if UFC have missed a bullet or told her probably straight up, no, we're not signing you, Bellator, well, they'll be stupid not to.
Cyborg mentioned her in a post fight. Cyborg first of all called out Kat Zingano. She wants to face her next. But she also said, Kayla, thanks for coming to the fights. I really appreciate you being here. I hope to fight you one day. It's going to be a great fight. But Ali Abdelaziz will have to talk to all the promotions to make this happen. It's more than likely now that she's done that she will end up signing for UFC. But you are right that there's so much featherweight talent out there. I mean, yeah, we all know that Cyborg was absolutely destroyed by Amanda Nunes, but there's still so much featherweight female talent out there that we could really do with seeing an influx of new fighters in this division, coming from some of these smaller promotions, and even raiding Bellator, because Bellator's featherweight division is pretty stacked.
And not only even that, it's not even about just taking fighters who you think or you know that's going to beat Amanda Nunes. It's just as well taking fighters who you think is going to give her a challenge, because not only if they do give her a challenge or look like they're going to give her a challenge, you know they're going to be good gatekeepers for other female fighters to come through and test their skill and get better. And look at all the male other divisions. We have that so many times, and the reason why it's not common or it's not weird is the fact is that it's been there for so long. There could be 60 to 70 fighters in one male division in the UFC, and then that's why they can put on fights every week in them sort of divisions and have top names and have 5 to 6 people who are top names, who are proper sellers, who are stars in that division. And there's a reason why there's only Amanda Nunes, Rose Namajunas and Valentina Shevchenko who are the only stars. Holly Holm's been faded out, Miesha Tate's been faded out, Joanna Jędrzejczyk's been faded out. Yeah, fair enough, they might still be big names on social media, but in mixed martial arts, they're gone now. They're not there. the end of the day, it's just all they are now is a name value.
I think the issue is that at the top of pretty much every women's division in the UFC, there is one huge star, and the rest are scrambling to be second place.
Well, that's it, but as well, they don't stick around long enough, and they don't sign new people long enough to where they can actually start bringing in more fights and actually having more challenges, because the only thing they do is they stick with the same 8 people who are top names and go, right, we're going to keep you, and then we're just going to
recycle you over and over again.
Yeah, and then what we're going to do is every now and again we're going to sign one female fighter and give her a 1-fight contract, or maybe a 2 if you're feeling lucky, and then we'll put her up against one of you, and then when you beat her, we'll put you up against a Nunes again. And then when she beats you, we'll do the same thing.
Over and over.
Yeah, and it's a boring cycle. Yeah. So that's why, my opinion, when I was saying it on one of the mixed martial arts group, on the mixed martial arts group chat things that I'm in, and people were saying you're wrong, that's the reason why I was saying it. Not because Felicia Spencer's shit or Leah's shit, that's not the case. They're in the UFC for a reason. But when it comes to actually the behind the scenes of what this fight means, it means fuck all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's get into the core main event. Won't take long. Marcos Rogerio de Lima taking on Big Ben Rothwell. Rothwell started pretty brightly, lands an early jab, then takes a couple of low kicks. One of them kind of wobbles him a little bit, which makes him walk into a big right hand, which stumbles him. He goes up against the cage. Rogerio just absolutely just lets loose with massive shots. We see Rothwell's legs buckle. Herb Dean steps in. He puts his arms around Rogerio. And now I've seen he's got a lot of grief on Twitter and from a lot of MMA journalists saying that he didn't commit enough to the stoppage. But the fact is that he tried to pull away Rogerio. Rogerio acknowledged that the fight was over, but Ben Rothwell had his head tucked in under Rogerio's arm and was trying to wrestle Rogerio. So someone like Herb Dean trying to stop 2 fighters who were tipping the scales at 265 pounds each, he has to just let that fight go to the ground, because otherwise he's getting involved in a scuffle. So he's in a no-win situation. The fact is that Marcos acknowledged that the fight was over, so as soon as the fight went to ground, he let go of everything. Then that gave Herb the chance to fully inform Ben that the fight was over. So I think Herb's getting a lot of grief for no reason, but what a victory for Marcos Rogerio de Lima.
Yeah, definitely. Now, obviously, first of all, on that, Herb Dean is one of the best referees in mixed martial arts. One of. I'm not saying is, one of. Still human, he can still
Mark Goddard right now.
Yeah, definitely. Mark Goddard all the way. It has been that for absolutely donkeys now. But yeah, Herb Dean, one of the best. Does he make mistakes? Yeah, he's still human. How many times does he make mistakes? Rarely. That's why he's still one of the best in the UFC. One of the biggest stages of them all. In this fight, like you were saying, he's not going to get in the way of guys who top the scale at £230 plus.
Well, they were both 265.
Well, 265. There you go. He's not going to get in the way of that, and I wouldn't either. He knew, as well as Marcus knew, that if when you know as a fighter that you've hurt your opponent, especially when you're in such a dominant position like that in the first place. So Marcus knew that he hurt him, and Marcus knew that he was safe. Herb Dean, from watching that, he was right the best seat in the house at the side of him. He knew at that point Marcus was safe, because Ben was hurt, and he knew if Marcus carried on, he were going to knock him out. Herb was about to jump in and stop it because he was cracking him, but Ben Rothwell was still committed to that takedown and was still getting it. Now, you're not going to stop a fighter who's been hit so many times, who's concussed, who's going in for a takedown, because odds are his ears are ringing like fuck, so he can't listen to you, he can't even hear you. He's just fighting off basically fucking autopilot mode. Yeah. So he's just going in for the takedown. Mark Goddard knew that he wasn't that Marcus was not going to be put in any danger. Only thing that Marcus needed to do is do exactly what he needed to do and just sprawl his hips back. Exactly what he did, whilst he was looking at Herb Dean. Mm-hmm. So all that situation played out perfectly. That was the most professional way of stopping of that thing. Now, if what would it have been like if Ben Rothwell was not all there, but Herb Dean jumps in, and then before you know it, you've got fucking Ben Rothwell who actually gets in, gets him in a single leg, picks him up and slams him.
We've seen that before, where fighters have been basically all there, but the lights are on, but nobody's home, and they've actually tried to tackle referees. Yeah. Because it's just instinct. It's just working off adrenaline.
Exactly. And if he was to get Herb Dean, and I'm not, people might say, "Oh, that'll never happen," but you never know.
We've seen it. So.
Yeah. Exactly. Like it's only a matter of time. If he was a 265-pound man, to get him in a single leg, put him down, and then as he's going down, land an overhand, and then drop it whilst they do it. It's a common thing that people actually get taught in mixed martial art. Alan's taught it us plenty of times. So has Rob. He's taught it us plenty of times to follow in with the strike whilst on the takedown going down. It's just the fact of how much force you're going to get behind the basically the cushion at the back of the head of when it's going to hit it. It's just simple sense. So yeah, that were a perfect thing to do. Now on the matter of Ben Rothwell, Jesus Christ, man. If you're not a mixed martial arts fan and you don't like Ben Rothwell, then fuck you. Fuck you. No, I'm only joking. The guy's an absolute legend. He's been in the UFC for such a long time now. His record as it stands now is 39 wins and 14 losses. That's a guy who has been around and fought everybody.
But yeah, his UFC record is 9-8.
And this is what I was just about to say. Even though he's been around a hell of a long time, he's accomplished a handful of things. And the poor thing is, I can't remember or bring up what them handful of things are. And for how much of a legend he is for fighting the who's and who's and when, where, and at any time, he's just not. He's never been the best fighter, never been the best mixed martial artist, and he's never been able to beat the top 5 or the top 3. And that's the sad thing about the Ben Rothwell. And as a lot of people might not understand, but he's still a human. He's, as I said to my wife earlier when she was like, "Oh my God, you didn't try anything." Ben Rothwell is in my eyes now. He's an old man now. He's been around and fought everybody. He's been in that many fights now. Surely to God, his body has started to deteriorate faster than a normal human's would. It's as simple as that. You can't take the punishment he's had and fight as many times as he's had. And not only fight as many times as he's had, but being in training camps, being in sparring, being in physical training, lifting weights, running, getting beat up and beating people up and all that cardiovascular training. It takes a toll on your body. And like Max Holloway, he put a statement out a couple of months ago saying he never lost, he just ran out of time. And that is true in a lot of fighters, where Ben Rothwell, he ran out of time. He fought that much where he ran out of time. His body didn't have the time to where his mind could basically sink in and he could get that perfect fight IQ to fighter output. He's always been one of these where I'm going to try and throw my biggest punch at you, and if it don't land, shit, but if it does, you're gonna fucking regret it.
There's no plan B.
There's no plan B. And obviously, I guarantee he's still strong as out. When it comes to speed, agility, reactions, all that shit starts to go when you get older. It starts to slow down dramatically.
And the more and more you get knocked out, the more and more likely it is you're going to get knocked out in your next fight.
Exactly. And in this fight, he didn't have the agility to move. His head movement has never really been there in the first place. Ben Rothwell has always done this weird dancing about, bobbing his head back and forth. He's never really head movement, he's just drunk dancing. Just where you see Tyson Fury at boxing ring taking piss out of his opponents. That's what Ben Rothwell does. But yeah, I think, in my opinion, Ben Rothwell is going to make a great coach one day, but I don't want to see him fight again. Just because he didn't see this coming. He didn't have nothing in the bag. After when he got hit, he knew that were it. He tried to cover up as best as he could, but he tried to move his head as best he could, but them punches were coming thick and fast, and it only were a matter of time, and it took 20 seconds for him to lose his bearings.
And you've got to give it props to Marcus. It was a great setup with those chopping leg kicks, and then once he saw that he'd wobbled Ben, to follow it up with that right hand, which it's always the punch that you don't see coming that does the most damage, and that's exactly what that did. And it forced Ben up against the fence, and you could see him stumbling, and like a shark with blood in the water, De Lima pounced and got the victory.
He definitely did, and well deserved.
Yeah, well deserved. So after that, we're going to the main event. I'm gonna let Carlos go through this because I think he'll have a lot to say about it. But essentially, Yair Rodriguez. I can never understand the UFC rankings because this guy's been out of the game for 2 years due to injuries. I've missed him. I think he's one of the most dynamic fighters that UFC have got, but I can't understand how he's ranked number 3 in the lightweight division when he hasn't fought since 2019. Going up against Max Holloway, who has struggled to be that fighter he was before he met Alex Volkanovski. Had a great fight against Calvin Kattar, but he's really trying to push either for those big name fights or to push for that return to championship fights. But Carlos, talk us through this one.
If you're not a fan of mixed martial arts, go watch this fight. And if you watch Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler, then wow, same as me and Mags, we were all in for a treat. That is honestly a present and a gift from UFC. 2 fights like that in the space of 14 days is just fucking brilliant.
2 weeks? Well, not a week. It was literally last week we got Chandler and Gaethje. So a week. The UFC, for all the shit that we give them, they have been delivering with these events, and
especially with the early ones as well. We can't thank them enough. Everyone in England fucking loves UFC right now. Honestly, my Facebook, my Twitter, and that, especially with everyone who don't really usually comment on UFC because it's on at a stupider time. The whole of Burnley loves UFC. Everyone's a fan now, just because it's been on for a month at times where it's been appropriate for everyone to stay up. Everyone's just jumped on it, and to be honest, a couple of months ago I would have been like, fuck off, everyone's doing me and you don't know shit. Now, because obviously with COVID knocked in and people not speaking about it as much, I've fucking loved it. But this fight was everything that they basically built it up to be, and as they sold it for. It was non-stop action. Yair Rodriguez being out for 2 years and coming back and fighting, if not the blessed, it's only Max Holloway the best. And he absolutely went in there and he put on a performance. The thing that let him down is for some reason, he just lost confidence in them leg kicks, and them leg kicks was working. You could see it were working. But Max Holloway is such an agility fighter where he can just absorb shots and just keep moving. Even though he knows they're hurting, you know they're hurting, he'll never show it, and he'll always whilst fighting you, he'll always try and have that mental fight of himself of keeping that pain away. And he's one of the fighters, or if not one of the best fighters, that is very good at doing that. He can take punishment, absorb it, and still move forward. And Yair Rodriguez somewhat started to lose confidence. In the first round, Max Holloway he's never slow. He still throws the strikes, but he always likes to see what his opponent's going to bring, see what he needs to do, what his output needs to be, what his distance needs to be at, what sort of fighting style he can get away with. Yair Rodriguez didn't give him any chance in that, even though Max Holloway, in my opinion, dominated this fight. Yair Rodriguez is one of them fighters that is so unique where he'll throw strikes from anywhere, and he were able to hit Max with some strikes that people have found it even hard just to jab him with. And he were hitting him clean, and Max was just walking through him. The first round, Max with the boxing, with the jabs, and Yair Rodriguez being from the boxing world, Mexico. He came in there and his boxing was fucking sharp. The jabs was on point. The hooks was scary. This is the only fight, hands down the only fight I have been worried for Max Holloway. When he was getting hit by some of them shots, I were holding my head like, this is the only fight I'm worried that Maxi could possibly get knocked out. And Yair Rodriguez, he was just absolutely on point with the way he was fighting, and then mixing the boxing up, because you can tell Max was getting comfortable with Yair Rodriguez kicking him in the leg, and he weren't checking him. Yair Rodriguez were bringing that kick up to the body, bringing it up to the head. The perfect way of getting someone to feel comfortable. Chop at the legs, then bring it up high. And he was landing it, and he stopped. He just totally abandoned his game plan. And Max Holloway at that point, when it comes into round 2, just somewhat starts to take over the fight, and he's leading the dance from at that point. Even though Yair Rodriguez is being able to throw these spinning kicks, the spinning heel kick that he threw in the second round was inches off hitting Max, and you could tell you could see Max's hair just go, poof. Thank God for that. But yeah, it was absolutely phenomenal. If he hit Max with that would have definitely put him to sleep. That would have been out. That would have been a fight ender. In the first round as well, going in the last 5 seconds, I saw Max Holloway, the position he were in, he could have got a reverse banana split there. Obviously, as you said yourself, only 5 seconds, he wouldn't really been able to do much, but I was thinking more of the damage what he'd been able to, even though it's horrible to say and a bit vague.
I think that's another big point that needs bringing up. We know Max as being someone who is amazing on the feet with his boxing. He argues he's the best boxer in the UFC, and who are we to doubt him? But he proved in this fight he's got ground game as well. He ended the first 3 rounds on top, on the floor. He was very controlling with the ground game, wrapping Yair Rodriguez up in all different kinds of positions, able to go from full mount to high mount to on the back. Not really getting into the point where he was close to submissions, because Rodriguez was his submission defence was on point, but the control was there from Max.
Yeah, definitely. Max was he's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and his wrestling has always been there. He's very good friends with DC, who's given him a hell of a lot of tips along the way. And not only that, the guy's been around mixed martial arts ever since he was like 14. And when you come into mixed martial arts, in my opinion, the way I've known a lot of people, they get comfortable in with the grappling first, because the way to build your confidence up, you don't want to just go into, right, I'm going to just go learn Muay Thai and then next week I'm going to go do some sparring, because you get your arse kicked, and you soon learn when there's a lot of people out there who do that and who are quite good, you start to think, oh fuck, is this actually the right path for me? So a lot of people take up grappling, whether that be wrestling or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Max has always had that game. When they brought it up, he hasn't had a submission finish since 2015. On one of the group chats, it started loading up. Yeah, that's because Max is shit. He's got no Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He can't finish. And it's like he's never. Yeah, well, not only did he prove that he has, it's always been. He didn't really have nothing to prove in the first place, because it's always been there. But the fact is, in his last 5 or 6 bouts since 2015, he's never had to use it. When you tell me one in his last fight, when has Max Holloway been boring? When it's been a stand-up fight, it's been boring. It's been non-stop for 25 minutes. He's never had to use it since 2015. All they ever had to use is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for submission attempts, because he'd prefer trying to punch you in the head 1,000 times.
You're talking about a guy who consistently breaks his own and the UFC record for amount of significant strikes in a fight. And even in this fight, when it was probably his most quiet in terms of output, but that's because he used so much more of his ground game.
And he still were able to throw over 200 strikes.
Way over 200. So that just shows how rounded of a fighter this guy absolutely is. And that's not to take away from Rodriguez. For someone who was out for 2 years, he gave Max all that he could take. Like Carl said, there were points where you genuinely thought that Max was in trouble, and the 5th round, when Rodriguez's team said, "Go for broke."
He needed
the game plan. Go and do something, and you had that contrast of Max's team saying, "You need to stick rigidly to this game plan because it's working." And there were points in that 5th round where Rodriguez had the chance to finish. He landed some huge shots. And any other fighter than Max Holloway could have been put out by those shots. But we're talking about arguably one of the greatest fighters that's ever been in an octagon with Blessed. And yeah, it was just an amazing fight. Straight the week after we watched Gaethje versus Chandler put on a massive performance, these two guys have held my beers and arguably had fight of the year.
Yeah, definitely. He's definitely a contender up there for one of the handfuls this year. But yeah, when it comes to this, I've not seen anyone do my sports and exercise science course. I've been able to, luckily enough, learn a hell of a lot about the human body and how when stuff goes wrong, what are the circumstances, the hematomas, the swelling, what it looks like, and I can say, I don't even need to, we can wait and it comes out, and I guarantee it, Max Holloway's got a broken rib. I have not seen a fighter break his ribs, and that well on the side when it comes down to the false ribs and when it's coming down to like your 6 and your 7 set of ribs, that were broke. If Max's ribs were broke, if it's simply that's what the hematoma on that side is a result of a broken rib. You can tell that, and you can tell it were broke just from the end of the fight of how hard the Yair Rodriguez was throwing his kicks, because Michael Bisping was the perfect part. Because if we look down, that's disgusting. Everyone about Yair Rodriguez's foot, that was absolutely a fucking massive balloon.
I spotted that after the second round, the camera focused on Max. And he was limping, visibly limping back to his corner, and that's because for 2 rounds his legs were being chopped to bits. But it focused on Yair Rodriguez's foot, and you could tell his toes were broke, his metatarsals were all broke, his foot was swollen. So maybe that's why he kind of like held back on those leg kicks again, because Max wasn't checking them, so he was hitting them full force. Maybe he was like, it's not hurting this motherfucker. What am I breaking my foot for this? Yeah, I'll hold off.
Well, that's it. And Max, he's like, again, he's one of them fighters that can just absorb punishment and keep walking forward and not show you that it's hurting. Because other fighters, I say that his hand was down here a lot to cover that body, but Yair Rodriguez wasn't able to just capitalise and do anything to him, and that's what makes Max so good at what he does. He's able to just control the fight and get it turned around the way he wants it to go, even though he's going up against a guy who we not long just saw a couple of years ago saw him knock Zombie out with an elbow. There were plenty of times where he had Max in trouble, but Max came back, and well, the best is blessed, and on to the next.
Yeah, so that's it for this week. Next week we have another Apex event, UFC Fight Night, headlined by Ketlin Vieira and Misha Tate, and then co-headline of Michael Chiesa taking on the unbeaten Sean Brady. Another relatively early one for us. I think it's a midnight start here in the UK. So yeah, listen to next week for that. But that's pretty much all from us here at 5 Rounds. Make sure you go and check out the rest of the content on the amazing networks we're part of. That's the Chair Shot, that's Radio Tekkers, and that's also Business Global Media. But go and follow me on social media at PodfatherMags. Follow Carlos here at Kirkby_Carlos. Thank you all for listening, and that is the end.
Adios, amigos.